There are moments in life when death is certain, when the final seconds are ticking away and hope vanishes like a candle in a storm. But what if, in those very moments, a savior appeared? And what if that savior wasn't human? From a dog that sensed an unseen death lurking in the shadows, to a whale that did the impossible to save a drowning woman, these are the most shocking animal rescues ever recorded. Stay till the end, because number 1 is a rescue story so terrifying, so mind-blowing, that it might just change how you see the world forever. Number 10. The lions that chased away. Human predators, Ethiopia. 2005. A 12-year-old girl was kidnapped, dragged deep into the wilderness, and held captive by armed men. For days she was beaten, starved, waiting for a miracle that would never come. Until one evening, something stirred in the darkness. At first, she heard the sounds, low, guttural growls coming from the shadows. Then, out of nowhere, 3 massive lions emerged. Not to kill her, not to eat her, but to face the kidnappers head-on. What happened next left even police officers speechless. The lions attacked the men, forcing them to flee into the night. But that's not the shocking part. The girl, alone, weak, and terrified, was now face to face with 3 apex predators. She braced for the worst. But the lions? They stood guard over her for 12 hours, like sentinels, like protectors, until the police arrived. Then, as if their mission was over, they vanished into the wild. But what if I told you that sometimes a hero doesn't even have to be big? Sometimes just a few words can save a life. And that's exactly what happened in number 9. Number 9. The parrot that screamed for help. A parrot can mimic words, sure. But what if those words were the only thing standing between life and death? It was a normal morning. A babysitter in Colorado was looking after a toddler, glancing at her phone, completely unaware that something was horribly, terribly wrong. Then it happened. A voice rang out across the room, but it wasn't human. It was Willie, the pet parrot. And he wasn't just making noise. He was screaming. "Mom! Baby, help!" The babysitter turned, confused, and that's when her heart stopped. The baby's face was turning blue, choking, dying. Without Willie's warning, the child would have suffocated in silence. A few more seconds and it would have been too late. But the babysitter rushed over, performed the Heimlich maneuver, and saved the child's life. A parrot, a bird, an animal we think of as just a talking decoration, had just done what no one else in the room could do. It had saved a life. But if you think a parrot's warning is shocking, wait until you hear what an entire group of animals did to fight off a nightmare from the deep. Keep watching. Number 8. The dolphins that battled a monster from the deep. The ocean is a terrifying place. Below the surface, something is always watching, waiting, hunting. Surfer. Todd Endress knew that better than anyone. Because one day in 2007, he became the hunted. It was supposed to be a perfect day. Calm waters, blue skies. And then, it happened. A 15-foot great white shark erupted from the depths with a force that shattered the silence. The first strike was brutal. The shark's jaws wrapped around his entire torso, shredding through flesh and muscle. Somehow, he survived. But before he could react, it struck again. The second bite tore through his leg. Blood poured into the ocean like ink in water. He was finished. But then, they appeared. A pod of dolphins. A dozen of them. They swarmed the shark, ramming it, driving it back, creating a barrier between Todd and the predator. Against all odds, the surfer managed to paddle back to shore, alive. If the dolphins hadn't arrived at that exact moment, he would have bled out in the water. But what happens when the danger isn't from the ocean, but from inside your own home? A killer in the night. And the only thing standing between you and death is a cat. That's next. Number 7. The cat that took down a home invader. Burglaries happen all the time. But what if you broke into the wrong house? A house where something was waiting for you. Mississippi, 2014. A man forced his way into a home, thinking no one was awake. He was wrong. As he stepped forward, a dark shadow launched at his face. Claws ripped into his skin. Teeth sank into his arm. He stumbled, screaming. The attacker was furious, relentless, and only weighed about 12 pounds. It was Binky, the house cat. The burglar tripped, crashed into a table, and ran for his life, straight into the waiting arms of the police. His face? Scratched. His arms? Torn up. His dignity? Gone. Binky didn't just fight him off. He took him down. And the best part? He was later awarded a hero's medal for his bravery. But what if I told you that sometimes animals don't just fight for you? Sometimes they sense danger before you even know it's coming. The next story is proof that animals can see what we can't. And what this dog did will leave you breathless. Number 6. The dog that saw death coming. Sometimes danger isn't loud. It doesn't come with a scream or a shadow. Sometimes it's silent, invisible, waiting. It was a freezing winter night in Indiana. A woman named Jean had just turned off the lights and was about to fall asleep when her dog, Max, suddenly began acting strange. At first he whined. Then he pawed at the door. Then he started barking, desperately. Jean was confused. There was no one outside, no sign of danger. But Max refused to calm down. He bit at her sleeve, pulling, dragging, something he had never done before. And that's when she felt it. Her head started spinning. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred. She stumbled. Max knew. Jean barely made it outside before collapsing onto the snow-covered ground, gasping for breath. Inside the house? A silent killer. Carbon monoxide had been leaking for hours, filling every room. A few more minutes and Jean wouldn't have woken up. But Max, he wasn't about to let that happen. They say dogs are man's best friend. But what happens when your best friend is the only thing standing between you and a predator from the wild? That's exactly what happened in number 5. And trust me, this one is terrifying. Number 5. The wolf pack that chose mercy. Deep in the Alaskan wilderness, a hunter was tracking prey. But what he didn't know was that he was the one being watched. It was supposed to be a simple expedition. One man, alone in the snow-covered woods. But when the sun dipped below the horizon, the silence became suffocating. Then came the sound. A low, bone-chilling howl. He turned. A shadow moved in the distance. Then another. Then, 6 of them. A pack of wolves. Their golden eyes gleamed in the moonlight. Their breath steamed in the cold air. They were waiting. Stalking. Then, the leader stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. The man gripped his rifle, but his hands were shaking. If he missed, it was over. But before he could react, something changed. The wolf stopped, tilted its head, and then it turned away. The rest of the pack followed. They left. Just like that. The hunter stood frozen, realizing that he had just witnessed something almost no human ever has, mercy from the wild. But not all animals walk away. Some, they fight. And when a single elephant went up against an entire village, no one could believe what happened next. Number 4. The elephant that crushed a killer. Villagers in India had been living in fear. A man, a predator in human skin, had been taking lives, vanishing into the night, and leaving terror in his wake. The police searched. They found nothing. Until one evening, when justice came in the most unexpected way. The man had made a mistake. He had wandered too close to the forest, and the forest was watching. From the trees, a massive figure emerged, towering, silent, powerful, an elephant. No one knows why it charged, but it did. The man turned to run, but it was too late. With one swift move, the elephant wrapped its trunk around him, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him down. One strike. That's all it took. The villagers watched in stunned silence as the elephant stood over the lifeless body. Then, as if its duty was done, it disappeared into the jungle. Some say the elephant knew, that it sensed evil, that it delivered justice where humans had failed. Coincidence? Or something more? But what happens when the rescuer is not just powerful, but impossibly intelligent? The next story isn't just shocking, it might change everything you thought you knew about the animal kingdom. Number 3. The gorilla that protected a human child. The year was 1996. A young boy visiting the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago was about to experience a nightmare that no one could have predicted. He had leaned too far over the railing, and before anyone could react, he fell. A 20-foot drop, a sickening thud, and then silence. The crowd screamed. The boy lay motionless, and just feet away, a massive silverback gorilla turned toward him. His name was Binti Jua. For one horrifying second, no one knew what would happen next. Then Binti did something that left the entire world speechless. She walked over, gently lifted the unconscious child, and cradled him in her arms. Carefully, tenderly, as if he were her own. She carried him to the enclosure's door and waited. When zookeepers arrived, she simply handed him over. No one could explain it. A wild animal had chosen to save a human child. But if you think that's shocking, you haven't seen anything yet. Because the next animal rescue on this list? It wasn't just incredible. It was impossible. Number 2. The whale that shielded a woman from a monster. It happened in the deep, endless blue of the Pacific Ocean. Marine biologist Nan Hauser was swimming peacefully, unaware that something enormous was approaching from below. Not the whale, something else. A tiger shark, 15 feet long, closing in. Nan didn't see it, but the whale did. Before she could react, the giant creature did something that defied logic. It swam directly toward her, not to attack, but to protect. It used its massive body to push her away from danger, to shield her. Then it lifted her out of the water. The shark circled, waiting, but the whale never moved, never backed down. Minutes passed. Then, the shark gave up and disappeared into the abyss. Nan was left floating, stunned. The whale had just saved her life. And to this day, no one knows why. But if you think that's unbelievable, nothing compares to number 1. Because this last story, it might just be the most chilling, most unbelievable animal rescue in history. Number 1. The dog that took a bullet to save a family. A quiet night, a peaceful home, a family sleeping soundly. And outside, a nightmare was approaching. Burglars, armed and ready, had chosen their target. They crept toward the house, their footsteps silent. But inside, someone was already watching. Kaiser, the family's German shepherd. He saw the figures. He heard the whispering. He knew something was wrong. And when the door was forced open, Kaiser didn't hesitate. He launched at the intruders. Teeth bared, snarling. The men panicked. One of them pulled out a gun. A shot rang out. Kaiser fell. But he wasn't finished. Bleeding, in pain, he forced himself back up and attacked again. The burglars ran, fled into the night, and Kaiser? He collapsed at the doorway, still guarding his family. They rushed him to the hospital, and after hours of surgery, he survived. A hero, a warrior, a protector, and proof that some animals will go to any lengths to save the ones they love. These were just some of the most unbelievable times animals saved human lives. But which one shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. And before you go, please subscribe. Because hitting your subscribe button can give me new motivation to work harder and succeed. And if you want more insane, jaw-dropping stories like this, stay tuned. Because what I have planned next, you won't believe what's coming.